Okay, can I get everyone's attention? Yes, hello. If so, we are coming up to the almost conclusion of the first Broadway Climate Summit. We'd like to thank you all. If you've been here, thank you. Thank you. If you have been here all day, thank you for sticking around. If you were just at a workshop and now you're joining this panel, thank you for coming. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Molly Braverman. So yeah.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. I feel like I need to switch hats for those of you who are just here. Like, we need some full-on theater play. But it is lovely to be closing out this incredible day and afternoon with all of you. We're going to start with some brief introductions and then we'll dive in. But I am Molly Braverman. I use she, her pronouns. I am the director of the Broadway Green Alliance. We are an organization that works directly at the intersection of theater and sustainability. So boy, is this day up our alley. Before this, I worked as a stage manager in the theater, both on Broadway, on tour, and then had the honor of serving as the managing director for a theater company in Philadelphia, just outside of Philly. For anyone who's from there, come talk to me about it. You will know Norristown. Wonderful. I'll let you all introduce yourselves briefly, and we'll dive more deeply into your work in the next portion.
Hi, everyone. So great to be here. I am Alexander Robertson. I am a creative producer here in the city. I work on Broadway as well as film and in immersive technology. I'm excited to be here with y'all.
Hi, I'm Kaaron Briscoe. I use she, her pronouns. I am the artistic associate at LCT3. I've been a freelance artist for most of my life, as well as a teaching artist, and now this is what I do.
Hi, my name is Kirya Traber. I am a freelance writer, performer, and cultural organizer. I wear a lot of hats in the theater. My favorite one is a writing hat, but I also do a lot of consulting and facilitating in a variety of different contexts.
I'm also going to tip you off. There is a third mic under your chair. Look at that. Only because I nearly broke that wire in the last session. Okay, so, great. Is there anyone on, are you on slides? Oh, fabulous. Can I trouble you? Can we get a little next slide, please? Ooh, all right. Somebody earlier today referenced their love of Dr. Anna Elizabeth Johnson, and I second that. So we are going to use her extraordinary work in framing for this session today. And the first is we are going to use just the title of her book, What If We Get It Right? And what a better way to close out this day together than with that question and with these three extraordinary artists who are going to talk to us about it. So essentially, she asked this question in her book, visions of climate futures, but this can certainly be extrapolated into visions of our industry, right? Visions of the climate, visions of the theater, visions of arts and culture and where we're sitting. I am the daughter of a therapist, so I'm going to start out by doing what she taught me, which is naming things, right? We have to name what's hard. And I'm finding it hard to sit in this room today, right? Having read the headlines this morning, yesterday, the day before, last year. It's an onslaught, right? And I think it's important that we name it. And it's certainly in a climate week situation where we're having lots of these panels and lots of this joy and gathering, right? It's all sort of under this cloud. And we're also under a cloud of what's happening in our industry, right? We are experiencing regional theaters closing due to lack of funding. We are experiencing job loss due to lack of funding, due to extreme weather. Last year there was an article in the New York Times, is this the end of summer theater due to extreme weather? We are living in extraordinary times, and I think it's critical that we name that. Again, daughter of a therapist, I like to say I like to play one as a result. She disagrees that I get the credentials, but fine. She claims she has a PhD. She does, she's extraordinary. But anyway, I just want to name that as we walk into this, and we're going to leave with joy because there is so much hope, and we wouldn't be here if the possibilities and solutions didn't exist, and you are all a product of that. And we're going to talk about, certainly this answer, what if we get it right? And the deep interconnectedness of what can bring us together. The challenges are interconnected, and as a result, so are the solutions. Next slide, please. All right, so another one of my favorites of Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson is her Venn diagram. Has anyone seen this before? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to read it just to make sure that those who can't read the screen as it's over here know what we're talking about. This Venn diagram shows your climate action in the middle. And to get to that middle, which is your climate action and can certainly be your action, it asks, what brings you joy? What are your sources of satisfaction and delight? What work needs doing? Climate and justice solutions. And what are you good at? What skills, resources, and networks do you have? And of course, when you think about those three things, in the middle is your climate action. And I love this because, again, as I just named, there's a lot going on. And it can feel truly overwhelming. And certainly there are mornings where I wake up and I think, I have to ask my toddler to brush her teeth in all of this? Like, how? And then I come back to this framing, right? What work needs doing and how can I bring my skill set? And so I frame all of this because now I want to turn to all of you. You have all found a middle, and many middles, I imagine. And I want to ask you to talk at a decent length. I would like to hear your stories, right? About how you found your way into the middle of this Venn diagram. So I will pass the mic.
Oh, I'm gonna kick it off. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'll try not to talk too long here, but I have a very unique and interesting journey, being one of the youngest Broadway producers right now. I've always loved the arts and what it does for our humanity and community from such a young age. I was that kid in the theater who saw what they were doing, was like, I want to do that. And so naturally, I went to school for that, got my education in that work, and unfortunately, I graduated into the pandemic from undergrad. And when you work your whole life for one thing, which the one thing I had wanted at the time was to be a very successful actor and be on Broadway and be in film and television. And at that point, I had to look around and decide, how could I still continue to be a part of this work and a part of an industry I really care about, but have a more sustainable place in it and use the skill sets and education I received. So naturally I was like, okay, I'll go to school more and I'll get more skills to become a producer. I found myself in grad school that fall of 2020, which, as you can imagine, the world was not at all returned to any sort of normal place. And I value experiences in my education. I'm a very hands-on learner. And I just felt that at the time, I needed to come to the place where I was driven to do the work. And ultimately, I found myself in New York City just a little year later, pursuing passionately becoming a creative producer. And at the time, I didn't know what a producer fully did. I had an artistic and creative background. I always imagined, well, we're the people calling all the shots, we're working with the artists and developing things. But naturally, I found my first challenge to actually be a large portion of what gets shows put up, which is finance. So very early, I was tasked to finance and bring a lot of money to the arts. And this idea of sustainability is a very unique one, especially when we're talking about the theater and the turnover that we experience. So very early, I leaned into that mission of, okay, I love the arts, I love theater, I know how to talk to people, and all I have to do is ask. The task at hand of contributing funds or being a part of teams that bring these beautiful shows to our community here and all across the world, I essentially learned very early what I could do to have an impact, even if it didn't look like the way that I wanted to from a young age. So I've had the pleasure of, over the last 4.5 years, working on over 10 Broadway shows here in New York and over 6 off-Broadway shows, as well as commercial productions all over the world, as well as film and an immersive technology. And I'm really passionate about what the arts can do and being just a service worker to our communities in that way. So that's a little bit of my story.
So, as I said, I have been a freelance artist basically most of my life. I started acting when I was 8, and I've been in admin for a whole 3.5 years, so I know all the things. But I think I love every aspect of theater. Like when you stand in a theater at night and it's completely dark and it's silent, and that smell and the way that like your body feels inside of it, like, and then there's a ghost light, like all of it is just beautiful. And like the idea that this empty space can create like so many stories from nothing. But not only does it create so many stories, you had to be there. Like, it doesn't matter that you saw the show the night before. It is not the same show the next day. You may have the basic story, but it's not the same show. Like the ephemeralness of this thing, this beautiful thing, and I feel like I've just given my life to it. I didn't join admin because I had some like, I did it because I actually wanted to know theater more. I wanted to get deeper into this art form that I have chosen. In doing that, that means that I see sometimes the good stuff and sometimes the bad stuff. And so if I'm looking at the Venn diagram that you've put up there, I would say like theater brings me joy, even on days when it does not love me. Like when I don't look like what the person thinks I should look like in my position, when there's not enough money to pay for the thing that we want because there are tariffs, or because there's just not enough money, and because like theater is just a really cool hobby, you guys. Like when there's just not enough, I still love the thing where we come together at an appointed time and we tell a story and we're all in this room together, and it happened that one time and we went away and we were changed. We're different people from the moment we walked into that space to the moment afterwards. And that is a beautiful thing, and that brings me joy. It brings me absolute joy. So when I go back to like what I'm good at telling stories. I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at like knowing like who you are rather than the idea of who I think you should be. I am good at relating one-to-one. I'm very good. I think I'm okay with talking to crowds. Hi. And the way that those things come together, like when it comes together for me in terms of like what is my climate action, is that I think sometimes when we think about what I think about, I'll speak for me, when I think about climate change, it is massive. It is not, like when I went to school, we talked about like, oh, there's gonna be like climate issues later. It was always later, and later is now. Yep. And it feels really big, and it feels like, well, why do I even bother? Because like everything is on the path, and I can't do anything about it, and everything feels so huge. But sometimes when something feels big, you have to put it down to like the simple. And I think for me, the solution for me when I talk to people is like, well, let's talk about what we can do. Like, what can I do? Like, one of the things I also take joy in is like things that are not disposable. Like this is stupidest, like tiniest thing. I got a table this year, like a dining room table, but because I got the table, I was like, well, I need like napkins. I need cloth napkins. And it is a silly, stupid thing, but I love the tactile feel of this thing. But not only do I have that, but it's sustainable. It is not disposable. My life is not disposable. The things in my life, as I create the life that I want, I create a life that is not disposable. While I work in an ephemeral space, it does not mean that that everything is easily gotten rid of. And so for me, I think that is my climate action, to make the things small and something that I can digest and work with, and the thing that I can do. I can't speak for like multi-million-dollar organizations, but I can speak for me. What can I possibly do? And maybe today the thing that I can do is I can go wash my napkins. And that's it. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna can I yes and real fast? Can I butt in with a yes and? Because I first of all love that. We were talking in the last session about how sustainability has had bad advertising up till now. And again, we know why. It's not an accident, right? Who's in charge of branding sustainability? The people who stand to make a profit, right? So we're in a room full of storytellers. So here we have opportunities to change that branding. But I think you just brought up such a beautiful example of sustainability not taking away, not being something you have to give up, but actually you gained, right? You gained joy of these napkins. I love my cloth napkins, and I didn't know I would, right? I love that. So I just want to yes and just sort of lift up this moment of like, sustainability can be joyful. And it doesn't, it again has such a bad rap of just like costing more and being like a burden. And also like the climate crisis didn't happen because of just one big bad thing. Like that would be easier because then we could just go fix that one thing, done. It happened because of all of these small actions, right? It's millions of actions and decisions that got us into this mess. So all of these actions, small feeling or big, are what's going to get us out of it, right? It's a cumulative effect. So yes, anding, that adds up. So
Thank you.
Hello again. So I want to quickly differentiate myself just slightly from my fellow panelists, though both have multiple hats as well in their history and I'm sure their future in the theater. But I'm representing the non-institutional affiliated type of artist. I'm a freelancer still until somebody hires me. No, for the foreseeable future. And there was some back and forth with the organizers about what panel to put me on because of that, because they had invited me to be on this panel, and I said, oh, well, thank you. And also, as an independent freelance artist, I see most of my ability to make any change has to be about rabble-rousing activism, pushing from the outside, because I don't have the levers of power that exist if you're leading an institution or have access to institutional conversations, even if you're a freelance producer, for example. And they affirmed that was an excellent voice to be on this panel. And I agree. I wouldn't say no. I just wanted to make sure there was like understanding of what I was bringing to the conversation. So, and I thank you so much for pointing to the Venn diagram to sort of lead. You're talking about yourself. I'll do the same. So I think my journey actually starts with what needs doing. I grew up poor, Black, queer, on the outskirts for a lot of reasons, and I came to the art, as a lot of folks with my background do, as a way to angrily express myself. I was writing really aggressive spoken word poetry. Who among us, right? But it was also organizing from a very young age. I went to college at 17, and I was in the streets with a bullhorn trying to stop the war and so on and so forth. And I felt like the most important thing to do was to put my body on the line and to literally exhaust myself until something was done. And what I learned over and over and over again is that I would still be exhausted and there would be more to be done. And I got burned out really, really quickly. By my early 20s, I was a wreck physically. Along the way, I did discover what I'm good at, and it's similar to my colleagues. I spin a really good tale. I think I'm pretty good in front of a crowd. And I'm a writer, and that's been my first love, and the love I keep returning to even as I perform and do other things. And there's a lot of need for that in all kinds of movements, though not always extremely overtly creative. A lot of times it's like, write this speech or, talk to this policymaker and be really, rationally incisive, which is really critical and important. And it took me actually a really long time, even after I was burned out, I was still judging myself for wanting to be an artist. And it wasn't until I was reintroduced to the work of folks such as Audre Lorde and June Jordan, these artist activists, these poet warriors who were understanding that their particular ability to craft the word, compel, and shape a struggle through the creative art was necessary, not only to what was happening, but even to how we even got to this moment. And I started to understand myself in the line of cultural workers, and that's also where I discovered my joy. And I was able to finally find a way to fit in that didn't completely drain and exhaust me. What that's meant over the years is a lot of different things, but some of my favorite projects are working with communities who are together because of a demographic or a particular need, whether it's in a family shelter in the South Bronx or with formerly incarcerated folks or young folks who are, growing up in New York as people of color in the pandemic, working with folks who are not necessarily artists first, but are a community of people first, who aren't being heard otherwise, and using my craft to help platform their stories. Usually working with folks to put them on stage, maybe some for the first time, or some for the first time in that way. I've also done, like I said, a lot of consulting and facilitating with organizations and small theater groups, et cetera, to work in similar ways with communities who are, again, there is a demographic of people first who are connected by something essential, and how to engage with them in the skills of the arts for as a means to an end, but not sacrificing good art on the way, making sure that we're really telling compelling stories and we're really speaking in the languages, all the languages of the arts, not just the word. I still think I'm trying to find my middle. I don't think I've landed in it perfectly, but I think that I did have to struggle through and keep having to remind myself how essential joy is to the process.
Thank you for this. Great. In a minute, we're gonna time travel. But before we do, I wanna lift up something all of you said, and I'm so glad you sort of brought up the fact that you questioned whether you should be on this panel. I think I'm sure kind of all of you did, maybe? Yeah, right? I often do, and I think that's important because, first of all, we're at a climate summit, and here I am asking you about some of your work that isn't necessarily climate related, right? And I think that's really important. To tie a through line, the title of this session, oh my God, am I gonna get it right? Where's Amy? Right, is a thriving industry. And I think the reason this is anchoring the end and the reason you all are here is because we cannot separate climate from all of these other critical issues that you all are working on and that I'm sure many of you in this room are working on, right? And I think climate has often been othered. And often I think you brought up that we were, a lot of the climate education we had perhaps was about, the polar bears and the ozone layer. At least I feel like that's all I was taught in school. Yeah. And I love the polar bears. But we missed an important part, which is actually, right, it's a human health issue, it's a justice issue, it is equity, it is tied to all of these other critical issues, right? There is absolutely no climate justice without racial justice. There's all of these issues that we have to keep reminding people are linking together, and I thank you all for being here and talking about your work and doing that to end today's program, to remind each other that we are all working on this together and they are linked. And as we look toward what a thriving industry can be, it is, again, I think interconnected is a key word coming out of this. And again, out of the last session, a lot of the words that came up were words, again, about building bridges and linking and all of these words that I think, again, were about communication and togetherness, and that, I think, ties nicely for those of you who were here for both. With that, I'm going to ask for some, everyone's least favorite, mine if I'm in the audience participation. But you don't have to I promise I'm a stage manager. Even I'm not scared by this one. We're gonna time travel, but we need your help. So all of you I'm going to ask to help us by making some magic jazz hands. So I need everyone in the room, we got magic jazz hands. This is now what's going to send us 10 years into the future, into a thriving theater industry. So, everyone, some more magic jazz hands. Think really hard. This is like your Tinkerbell moment. I'm not sure we can reference that play anymore. All right, are we there? Yeah. Great. All right, panel, I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, I'm gonna look at this, I don't wanna get it wrong. I wanna know where we are. We are 10 years into the future. Oh wait, next slide, please, look. What if we're 10 years in the future and we are in a thriving, equitable, and sustainable industry? The theater industry and the arts and culture industry looks different. Arts and humans and the planet are thriving together. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Anyone want to start?
I can be as pie in the sky as I want, right?
Yeah.
A million. You just saw those jazz hands.
I did. I'm sorry. Theater's free.
Yes.
It's free. If you have an idea, you make the thing. That as many stories as possible are like it. You could either stay home and watch TV, which is fine, or you can go watch like multiple shows that are available to you. And the people up there look like you. They sound like you. They tell stories that maybe you've never heard before. And it is just open and expansive. I think that theaters themselves are in all spaces. They don't have to just be like, I love where I work. I think that we have a beautiful building, but theater can happen anywhere. And it is still just as important if it happens in a big building or if it happens in like a storefront. I'm still thinking, but that is like off the top of my head, that's it. Yes.
That's great.
Oh, wow. Okay. A thriving industry. You know, looking at 10 years from now, I would love to see that we have more of wide-ranging stories and more experiences here. We live in one of the greatest hubs in the world here, and yet the content that you see on stage isn't necessarily fully reflective of these communities. We have a duty and a mission to continue to bring and foster these new voices who historically have not had the opportunity, or whether, you know, for a myriad of reasons. I see an industry where we've integrated theater back into the culture of folks who don't necessarily go to the arts in their respective communities. Meaning, the same way you're gonna watch your football game on Sunday, you're gonna be at the theater because you know you're gonna be affected. You're gonna be there because you know you get to share that experience with your family, the people you love. You get to have an experience where you leave, like we said earlier, a different person than when you walked in. And this idea of access is something that we've also discussed a lot, because it is the nature of it being show business. The commercial theater is a large sector. These shows, these productions require a lot of capital, but it also requires the support of people showing up and buying tickets. Not everyone has the ability or the access to buy these tickets, and it's a conversation that we have across all sorts of organizations, but it's something I think about a lot when it comes to the highest level of commercial theater is what can we do to make sure that if you are that kid who doesn't necessarily come from a lot, you get the chance to come see a show. And there have been really great programs in New York City that have allowed a lot of high schoolers to come and experience shows. That work has been instrumental for us, but I think there's so much more we can do than just focusing on the young folks. There are more folks out there who we could bring into this community. So I think for me, it looks like a place where anyone can find themselves in this art, but also they can be changed no matter no matter whether they sit in The Lion King or they're seeing a new show that we don't even know about. So that would be it for me.
Thank you both. I'm gonna, since my colleagues here did a really good job of the big dream, I'm gonna get a little more granular. And to answer this question, what's happening in my mind is I'm thinking about, you know, we're thinking about a thriving theater industry in the context of sustainability. So how is it contributing to what we hope is a better climate picture around us? And to answer that question, I have to ask myself, what is theater good at? And I think one thing that probably most of you in this room are bought into, and that we've already sort of waxed poetic about, whether we're talking about the ghost light or my love of writing, is theater being really good as an experiential way to sort of have a cathartic or a transformative internal and interpersonal experience. We got that part. The other thing that theater is really good at is interdisciplinary collaboration. It's one of the few industries that really requires such a diverse range of skill sets in the here and now, in a very present, like people have to work together at the same time to make this thing happen. And like you said, anything can happen any night. So they have to be on all the time. And like all praises to stage managers, always. Every industry should have stage managers, I think. Yes. So then I think about, again, that question of, okay, we want to be in a better climate environment in 10 years. We want theater to be a part of that, and theater is really good at interdisciplinary collaboration. So I think of it as perhaps a training ground, not to be on the nose, but a rehearsal for other kinds of interdisciplinary collaboration, that people are participating in theater in order to sort of get themselves ready for other kinds of collaborations that maybe more directly affect our biosphere or what have you, more directly affect the things that are changing the weather and giving us access to water and so on and so forth. I think also there's reporting out from those projects is done in more theatrical and storytelling ways. But that there's a more, I don't actually think that anybody doesn't already engage in the arts. I think the missing piece is people realizing that it's the arts they're engaging in. When they're watching whatever, even the most trash reality TV show, there's a lot of BFAs involved behind that. You know what I mean? We all took the same Ibsen class or whatever. And so theater artists are everywhere, and we're the way in which we're communicating with each other in mass is a theatrical experience. I mean, every time I'm going through TSA, I'm like, what a crappy theater experience this is. But it is, right? And so if we are able to pull the veil back on the way that we're actually engaging with the arts versus what we think it is to engage with the arts, to walk into the Delacour or walk into, name your favorite Broadway theater, that's one theatrical experience, but it's just one. And so if we're able to, as a culture, more honestly name the ways in which we're collaborating, storytelling, and having to participate towards the same goal in a rapid amount of time, that's what I think a thriving theater industry. I mean, yes, and I just want to underscore, there's so much that has to be done about equity in the industry, whether we're talking about race or gender or disability or any other identity categories, or whether we're just talking about honoring carpenters and making sure that they're getting their due. There's so much that has to be done. So many, the industry right now is a horrifying example of labor malpractice. What's happening because of the tightening budgets means that the small theater companies are staying alive by cutting people's jobs and hours in ways that's making it impossible for people to participate and keep it safe. And I mean safety across the board in so many ways. And so yes, if we're making a theatrical piece in and of itself in a theater or even in an outdoor space, we need to think about equity and who's on stage and who's behind stage and how they're paid. But I also want us to acknowledge the ways in which theatrical training and practice is actually a necessary part of structural change.
Great. I have 3 questions left, and stage manager, 9 minutes. And I want to leave time for some audience questions, so I'm going to pick, because I did want to ask about systemic barriers, but I feel like you just named a lot of them, so I'm going to choose a different question.
Okay. We could go on, though.
No. Do you want to talk more about that?
Maybe give us some options.
Yeah, all right. Okay. You can choose from systemic barriers, or we're going to flip it, and I do want to know, because this work is tough, I would like to know what sustains you, how you keep going. You could talk about both. Talk about the yin and the yang there. The both sides of that.
I would love to talk about what sustains me and keeps me going and doing this work, but I'll also touch on a little bit about the other thing. So I think what sustains me is the community we have around us. It can feel impossible to get anything done. But it takes that one moment where I finally get to talk to someone who was in the audience. Maybe they've never been to a show ever, or they never liked the arts, and they say, you know, I had one of the most transformative experiences of my life. Thank you so much for being a part of that. That's where I snap back and I go, I'm stressed out about everything that could hold me back, but that in real time is justification for the work we're doing. We are affecting people no matter how much we may see that impacted in our real lives. So just remembering that one small action can lead to really big things. And something actually for you, Molly, that I noticed the other day, so in our developmental sessions with artists, we often have binders full of music and scripts and everything. And the other day I was in a session and I opened the binder and I had seen that the binder that we were using in the session had been used by multiple people. Oh. It was a Broadway Green Alliance initiative to have these binders, and if you want to talk a little bit more about it, you can, but as someone who wasn't aware of this, I saw this in the back of the binder, and it was like, this binder's been owned by this person, and this person, and this person. We have a lot of turnover, given that all of our productions are small businesses in their own right. And so we don't really share, and we don't realize how much we're wasting when we do that. And so that was a small thing that I noticed that I really loved and said, wow, okay, there are small actionable ways that we can continue to bring sustainability into the work we do every day that definitely will have a long-lasting impact. So I hope to see that more, and that, you know, we share a little bit more in our resources.
Not every day a panelist does the resource plug for you, so thank you. Visit BroadwayGreen.com to find more of our free resources for the community. Thank you so much.
So I'll start with what sustains me. In my job, I read lots of plays, and so the idea of, like, the way, watching how plays have changed over, even just since, like, coming out of the pandemic into now, has been interesting, and the way people tell stories are not, I think they're changing, and I think that that's beautiful, and it, like, having someone, I'm just like a little kid, I just like want somebody to tell me stories, and I think it's beautiful. But I also, yeah, Lincoln Center Theater is a massive theater, but we're also a really small staff, and one of the things that sustains me is I go to work every day with people who love theater. They're like, they're like nerdy about theater in whatever way that they're into it, be it marketing, be it education, whatever. They're like, people who love something and bring that love to their work is exciting. It's just, you watch someone's face light up as they're talking about development. And I'm just like, okay, this is not my first, but yes. And you get just as excited as they are. But it is weirdly like, it is a thing that sustains me, is the people that I work with also love theater, and we love it in so many different ways. I go to work and talk about what I saw, and I can talk about it with someone else, but which is also just, it's just an extension of community. It is my community. We are talking about the things that we saw in the world, and I love that. In terms of systemic barriers, I will say, I don't, for some people, I do not look like the artistic associate of LCT3. I don't. I'm aware of it. And it just is. I have an educational background, I know, because I still pay on it. So I have years and years of experience, but my face, like, I don't feel like I should have to carry my resume around to tell you who I am. I just bring my experience. And so systemically, like, just the fact that, like, I don't look like what you think I should look like is already a barrier before you've come across anything else. I was lucky. I went to grad school. If you didn't go to grad school, maybe you don't have the community that helps you move up in the world. Also, what is up? Like, the idea of, our idea of, like, what is success in theater, I think is actually a thing that holds us back.
Yes.
Again, I love my theater. It is wonderful. But it is also not the place for everyone, and you might not thrive there. And that's okay. That does not mean you didn't succeed. It means that's not your people. That's it. That is all. Yes. That idea of, like, you've only made it if you've, like, when someone says, when you're like, I'm a performer, so what have I seen you in? Okay, but if you're paying your bills as a performer, that's success. And if you're not paying your bills as a performer and you're doing something else, that is still success. But the idea that you've not made it into the right rooms, you didn't go to the right schools, you don't know the right people, those are systemic barriers. Yes. They're barriers, and sometimes those barriers come based on what you look like, how you move through the world, how much is in your pocket, who your parents were, those things. As much as I love, again, like I said, I love theater, but sometimes it does not love me back, and it does not love everyone equally. Mm-hmm. And the way it does not love you equally is saying that you have to be a certain thing to succeed. And unfortunately, because there are systemic barriers, the way you define success has to often be a personal thing. It has to be something inside of you, otherwise it will crush you. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna leave that on a happy note. There you go.
I'm just gonna pick right up on that briefly because I think it's been well said, but just like anecdotal. Like I'm a writer who wants to write stories about my experience as, again, someone who grew up poor, who's Black, who's queer, and has chronic health issues, and so on and so forth. And even when I get in the room as a playwright with my story, sometimes I really struggle to find the performer who has my experience, because either they never felt like they could get that far in acting, or I can't afford to pay them a living wage, which is another huge issue. And also the way in which I want to engage in a room with people who have had multiple compounding oppressions means it's gonna take more time. It's gonna need to have a slower process. We wanna tell better stories by being better to each other, and that is expensive if we keep valuing theater the way that we have been. I wanna answer your other question. I can't answer without crying. I'll just say that. I had a major health crisis this year. I was hospitalized for almost 2 months. The way my community of weirdo artists showed up for me has completely transformed my understanding of what it is to be in community. Because they weren't just showing up to my show. There was no show. And people showed up by giving money, by bringing food, by just sitting in a room with me while I napped. And I don't think everybody in this industry has that, because I think a lot of people get torn down and pushed out and feel shat upon. But I have managed to cultivate a community of people who share my values and my love of the arts. And they saved my life. And then I had to go home and I had to deal with myself and heal, and I'm still healing. And for a while I couldn't write, and that was another kind of almost death. And one of the hats I wear is dramaturg, and I got to be a dramaturg for 2 shows this last summer. And being in the room again, engaging with other people's creative problems, and grappling with literally shows about grief, you know, losing people we love and losing our, grappling with our what little control we have in this life. It brought me back to life in another way. And so I'm so full of gratitude for artists and artistry and my access to it. And I know more than ever, I was already certain of it, but I'm even more certain that this is what I'm put on this life, in this earth to do. And I won't do anything else. I don't care.
Someone in this room has a tissue. Someone in this room has a tissue.
I'm okay.
Okay. I was like, where? Thank you. Thank you for that vulnerability and sharing and bringing this back to the center of why we're all here, right? The humanity and the community. You know, and the humans, right? Why would we be having these conversations if it weren't for the humans that were here, right? Not just the polar bears are great, but the humans. Thank you for closing. Again, we're 2 minutes over. Hopefully Equity won't take my card. So apologies, we don't have time for questions, but I have a feeling that we can loiter a few minutes if folks want to come up individually to check in. I'm sure we are all accessible for questions following this, but it is a joy to close with that story. Thank you. Thank you each for sharing your time and your extraordinary expertise. I wish we had hours more to dig in. Thank you all for being here. Amy, do you want to close us out, or I'll hand it over to you?
So everyone, I would invite us to, after all the amazing conversations that we've had, both hearing from the speakers and connections that you've made with other attendees, I invite you to think of one thing, getting just one thing in mind that you can do from here. To not be overwhelmed by the magnitude of it, but to focus on what are we being pulled to do individually, and how can that contribute collectively to what we are building together in this movement. Artists have the capacity to move people, and that is essential in this movement. So we are so glad that you all joined us today. And this initiative is not just a one-day event every year. We're going to be doing programming throughout the year. We want to continue this conversation and build a coalition of people who care to use theater to respond to these times meaningfully. And we are so excited that you're a part of this kickoff event. A few things that we have going on with Broadway Climate Summit, we have the musical workshop starting in a few minutes with Gypsy Bell, if you want to get that. We have a virtual panel coming up on October 14th talking about different theater that is climate infused, that is being produced by theaters locally here in New York and in other regions. And there was one more thing. Oh yes, and we have a culmination performance tonight where you can see different excerpts of climate infused theater. So that's at 7 o'clock. Come see me after if you'd like to come to that. And I just want to thank you all for being here, and let's continue this momentum, and let's go do that one thing. Thank you. Oh, yes, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to announce. The social room is going to be open for the next hour, so go hang out. We got